Now for some much needed comic relief with Odd One Out. Odd One Out was done by Toei and was given over to the guys who created the Dragon Ball anime. In fact, this is actually the first time they've worked with each other since Dragon Ball. So this is a much needed reunion. And even if you hate Halo with a burning passion of 1,000 suns, if you love Dragon Ball, this is something you have to thank the Haloverse for. It has several Dragon Ball references, and it doesn't really take itself seriously. It's just there for the pure comedic value of it. All things considered, this guilty pleasure is pretty much necessary after watching the Halo recap in Origins, the bittersweet story of the duel, and the fairly depressing story of Homecoming. In any case, Odd One Out revolves around a clumsy Spartan named 1337 who starts off by falling out of a Pelican troop transport ship. He meets up with some caveman kids that live on the planet they're on and quickly gets turned into a chew toy by their T-Rex. I kid you not, this happens in the first few minutes of the short. He falls out of an airplane, gets turned into a chew toy by a Tyrannosaurus Rex. You have to see Odd One Out, at least for this. It doesn't take long for a roid rage filled little Covenant monster comes out and the Spartan teams up with the super strong older siblings of the little kids to duke it out with the new monstrosity, to varying degrees of success. On a technical standpoint, this isn't really anything we haven't seen before. It's got that shonen-style, Dragon Ball-esque level of zaniness and action that we've grown to love with shonen anime, and while it does it very well, it still has those same cliches, it still has those same moments, and not exactly very original. The overall visuals are actually pretty good in this, as they use the right amount of colors and the right look to a lot of stuff here, but to be honest, the animation is just slightly above average as it's minimalistic in a few areas, and the characters, well, I love them, and I love the voice actors to them, and yes, the Japanese language track is slightly better, but the English is still very good. They're more or less caricatures than they are fully fleshed out characters. In the end, I give this a 91 out of 100. While this is not a bad film, it's mostly mindless fun, and it's a guilty pleasure. Moreover, if you're not into Dragon Ball-esque anime, you're definitely going to want to avoid this. Now that we've had our good old-fashioned nostalgia and some mindless fun, it's time to go back to some of the more darker and more serious stories in Halo Legends with Prototype. Prototype was done by Studio Bones, which has had a wonderful record of being able to get out good anime out to the masses. They did the anime of Fullmetal Alchemist and Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. They did Ouran Host Club, and they did Wolf's Rain, to name a few. At the time when Studio Bones got this project, they had just finished Eureka 7 and wanted to see if they could one-up that. So they got the directors of Eureka 7, Tomoki Kayade, and the art director of Shinji Aramaki to do just that. Now the thing about Shinji Aramaki in particular is not only is he an avid fan of the video game that this is all based off of, and the fact that he is a veteran sci-fi animator, he actually worked and learned under the guy who created a signature method of drawing missiles flying through the air, something he used heavily when both men worked on Robotech, and so he took his experiences with that and added it to this one. As you can guess from that description, this is going to be a mech anime. And since I spent about 2 minutes on just talking about the people behind this, I think it's probably about time that I actually talk about Prototype itself. Prototype follows the story of a duty-bound yet guilt-ridden soldier by the nickname of Ghost, who's called that both from the fact that he has a very limited emotional range and the fact that he let his whole team get killed on his last major mission, an event that he's never truly forgiven himself for. Skip to 3 years later, and he's on a planet being overrun by a large army of Covenant troops, and he and his new team are on a mission to destroy a prototype power armor before it gets into the hands of the Covenant. However, because of how hopeless the situation is, instead of destroying it, he decides to buy his comrades some time by piloting it and setting off the auto-destruct himself. Ghost will be sacrificing himself to be able to accomplish this goal. However, in doing so, in his mind at least, he'll regain his humanity before he goes. On a technical aspect, this is a really well done film. While Prototype doesn't add anything to the War as Hell concept that novels, live-action film, and for all intents and purposes, Robotech and Gundam haven't drilled into us beforehand, it does what it does very well, and it works with what it has so much that nothing feels cliched or heavy-handed. In fact, it adds a whole human level to it, and you feel very sympathetic for the main character, as he's seeking his own redemption for something that may or may not have been in his power to control. The animation and the art style is incredibly superb, from the traditional 2D animation to the CGI that makes up the power armor, which allowed the very normal Marine to be able to be on par, if not even stronger than Master Chief in the first 3 Halo games. The music is superb, adding to the adrenaline rush this show gives you. The English and the Japanese language tracks are excellent at portraying the characters. It opens up bittersweet, it ends bittersweet, and to be blunt, I'm going to give this a 94 out of 100. Definitely worth your time to see. Next up on the chopping block is Babysitting. It's about an elite team of Orbital Drop Shock Troops, or ODST Helljumpers, who specialize in sniping, as they are ordered to accompany a Spartan to assassinate a Covenant prophet. The ODSTs, as a general rule, don't like Spartans because they think they're overpriced and overrated, but as usual, the Spartan doesn't really care. There are also a fair number of other contrasts in the show. For one, you have the fact that the Spartan is pretty much the tall, dark, green, silent type, and you have O'Brien, the main character, who's a brash loudmouth who just happens to be a really good sniper. Moreover, out of all of the ODSTs in his team, he's the last one to warm up to the Spartan. This is despite the fact that the Spartan keeps on saving his butt time after time after time, and has more than proven itself more than capable of earning their respect. And yes, there will be plenty of grunt abuse. On a technical aspect, this isn't really a story we haven't seen before. Besides the fact that it's in a sci-fi setting in the Halo universe, this is pretty much the same story of a group of soldiers doing their duty in an adverse situation. The fact that they're special forces doesn't really change much. The fact that this is a sci-fi setting doesn't really change much. And this is not a bad thing, it's just nothing that hasn't been done before. The character is the same way. It's pretty much the stock yin-yang relationship between two characters who are complete polar opposites of each other. In this case, it's the classic anime stoic silent type and sarcastic loudmouth. Still, the animation is really good. The backgrounds and the setting is excellent, and overall quality is pretty good. It's got enough action to it, and what little dialogue they have is pretty good. However, if I had to pick between the two main languages, English and Japanese, I'm going to have to give it to the English one, because the Japanese dub made O'Brien sound like he was going through puberty. It opened well, and it ended in a similar manner, so both high marks there. In the end, I'm still giving this a 91 out of 100. It's still a really good piece of animation, and it's definitely worth a go look-see.